And joining us now in studio is Pastor Trey Graham. Thank you for coming in.
Great to see you.
Israel is facing difficult times these past few months, certainly here on the ground, but also around the world, as it seems so many are turning against Israel. And surely in these challenging times, evangelical support is very important. Can you please tell me about this kind of support coming from your community?
Well, anti-Semitism is a problem around the world, and it's seen a lot more clearly in the last few months, but it's not a new problem. It's a long-term problem. And we who are followers of Jesus, we who believe the Bible, understand that God made a covenant with one people about one land, and that's the people of Israel about the land of Israel. And so anti-Semitism is not just hatred of the Jews, which it is, but it's hatred of God's plan. It's hatred of God's covenant. Now, there's prejudice of all kinds, prejudice against different groups, but anti-Semitism is different because we believe it's spiritual warfare. And so those who pray, those who believe the Bible, those who believe in God's covenant will stand against anti-Semitism.
Now, we've seen many polls coming out of the United States over the last few months. I think one of the common things in all of these polls is how the younger generation seems to be a lot less supportive of Israel than the older one. Is this the case in the evangelical community as well?
There's a lot of polls, and depends on which poll you look at. I know it's a concern. I don't know if it's a certainty, but it's a concern. But that's a concern based upon the younger generation. Are they as close in their faith? Are they as religious as they were before? And as I was saying a moment ago, if we believe that support for Israel is not just political and diplomatic, but it's spiritual, then it's really based upon a person's spiritual growth. And the question is always about the next generation. Where will they be in their faith?
Are there any kind of initiatives or any type of messages that you try to convey to your younger generation in order to garner this kind of support for Israel?
Sure, there's a lot of efforts that I work with different organizations in Israel that are trying to do that, whether that's Bible studies, whether that's small books for kids like coloring books and puzzles. There's lectures, there's teaching, all kinds of things. We, again, believe it's a spiritual issue, so the better you know your Bible, the better you're going to understand Israel, and so our focus is on the Bible teaching and spiritual development side.
And generally, for young Americans, how can these young Americans be drawn back to understanding the case for Israel, do you think?
Well, it covers all areas. I've said it a lot. It's a spiritual thing. It's a biblical thing. It's also political and diplomatic and legal. And it's understanding the news. It's understanding how to read the news or listen to the news and see when falsehoods are being told, when Israel's being treated differently in the UN or in the media because of an anti-Semitic bias. The charges against Israel are different. They're worse than other nations, even if their actions are not worse. So teaching people to read the news and understand the news and find the bias is a big part of helping them support Israel, because they can realize that the news that they're reading that's negative often isn't true.
So to be informed, to be knowledgeable, and to avoid ignorance, you say?
Sure, and to learn to speak the languages, learn the terminology.
Mm-hmm. Now, the anti-Semitism that we've seen around the world, specifically also in the United States, this includes so many incidents on university campuses. So we're speaking university students. What, in your opinion, can be done to reduce these incidents on campuses?
Well, the schools themselves, the universities themselves need to ensure the safety of their students. And when pro-Israel speakers are invited, they should get the same respect, the same courtesy, the same security that an anti-Israel speaker should. And the students who are there to learn should be exposed to both sides of this issue.
Now, the annual Israel Allies Foundation, with more than 20 Christian lawmakers, is here in Israel this week on a visit. They are constantly trying to garner pro-Israel support and legislation through faith-based diplomacy with Israel. How effective is their voice, do you think?
It's very effective. And I know this organization, I've worked with them and their leader, Josh Reinstein. It's a very important organization because we've talked so far about religious groups or churches. We've talked about the media and the universities. This is on the political level, getting parliaments and governments around the world to understand these same issues, that Israel deserves the same respect that other countries do. And if they are Christian lawmakers, they're combining their faith background and their political background to stand for truth, but using their platform as elected officials.
Now, I'll just ask you one last question. There have been calls around the world to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. Where does your community stand on this?
Well, we understand that there's been sort of a test run of that theory, and that's called the Gaza Strip, when Israel unilaterally withdrew. And look what it's turned into. So there's no way on the ground right now that the conditions exist for a Palestinian state that could be run in a safe and cooperative manner with Israel. That's only the diplomatic answer. The spiritual answer is we don't ever believe that God has a design to divide his land.
Pastor Trey Graham, thank you very much.
Great to see you.